Hi there and welcome to the Easy As Accounting 2.3 video update. What I want to discuss in this update is the changes that Easy As have made to their printer settings. Okay, up until now Easy As only gave you the ability to send you all of your reports and your invoices etc. direct to a printer. Now with this new update they have also granted you the ability to save a report or an invoice direct to your hard drive in a file. Why would they do this? Naturally so is that if you have a client that you want to send an invoice to or some other document, you can attach it to an email and forward straight across the internet. Okay, I want to discuss a couple of points with you. Firstly is on the main desktop you will see that they now have a new icon down the bottom left hand corner here. It has an image of a printer. Underneath it the default setting is print to printer. What that basically says is whilst that is in that mode, any report you print, for example if you print any of these reports here, or if you print any report under expenses or invoices etc., or income etc., they will print to the printer. If I was to click this icon and then I click OK to accept these changes, it now says underneath it says save to a file. What that says now is the default setting has now been changed, so if I now print any of these reports it will automatically attempt to save them to a file on your hard drive. Okay, that's it. That's all that's required by you to have that occur. If you want to change it back to printer, simply click again, click OK. You can do this all day. It's as simple as a click. Okay. One thing I want to point out, if we're going to save it to a file, let's attempt to do that. If I click expenses, I wanted to save this report here to a file. I've only got one transaction here, but let's give that a go. If I click print, it will come up on the screen and it will say to me, okay, I want to print this file, I want to save this file to the hard drive, and it's attempted to call it taxdetails.rtf. Don't worry too much about this name. This is the system name that Easy As have given the file. It's how they keep track of what the software is doing. You can change that name because to me that means absolutely nothing. I don't understand what that is, so I'm going to call this particular report and I'm going to say expense sample. Okay, that's the name of the report. The RTF on the end is the format. You must leave that. If however you accidentally do delete it, just simply type it back in. .rtf, that's all that's required. Expense sample RTF. If I click OK, that's it. It's saved that particular report to the hard drive. Where has it saved it? It has saved it to the My Documents folder. If we look here, expense sample RTF under My Documents. Okay. I'm just deleting. Okay, expense sample RTF. If I open that up now, you get to see the sample report. There's only one transaction in there, so you know it's nothing much to look at. But there's the report on the hard drive. Okay, what I also want to point out next is the difference between those reports and your invoices and a couple of reports. Your invoices, your quotations, your purchase orders, and your credit notes. These four areas are not governed by this particular icon setting here. Anything you set here will not affect any of these areas. These are separate. Okay, let's have a look at an example. Let's have a look at invoices. If I click on invoices, I previously created this invoice number 151. If I click edit, we can now print up in the top left hand corner. We can print this to a printer. These are the normal settings, the original settings where print 2 copies. We could print that to a printer. It now has another icon underneath which says print to a file for an email attachment. Okay, You have these both choices at any one time. The reason Easy As have done this is to save you time. If you, for example, got to the end of a month, you might have half a dozen invoices to print and send to clients. You might have a couple that you want to send over the internet as an email attachment. It would be absolutely pointless to have to jump out of the invoices, go back to the screen, change the setting, jump back into the invoices just to save it to a file. Okay, so what they've provided is at any time you have access to both of those particular things. Right here, right now, I could print to the printer and I could also print this to a file. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a sample. We're just going to print this to a file so I can show you what happens. If I click that, it whizzes away and that is it. It's saved to a file. When you're printing the invoices, as a matter of fact, when you're printing any of these 4 areas, you do not have a choice of renaming the file. It's done automatically for you. The reason being is it would be obvious. If you want to save that invoice to the hard drive, it's obvious because it's invoice number 151, you'd want it saved as invoice 151. You wouldn't want it saved as invoice 102 or something like that, because that won't make any sense. You won't know where the invoice is, you won't be able to find it. So what it's done is it's saved it. So if I go to my documents, there we have it, invoice 151. So it's saved that under the actual name. Okay, that's basically it. That's all I need to discuss to do the printing. If I just look at one more thing here for you, if you have a quick glance at this file, it's got a number 1 in front of it. Why do we have this number 1 in front of it? Okay, if we jump back to the software, I go to the main screen. If I click on my name, you'll see it will come up with this box. Easy As has a facility to give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different businesses or sets of books at any one time you can be running. Okay, so that number 1 in front of that invoice number meant business number 1. This is business number 2, business number 3, 4, 5. Okay, it doesn't care what the name of the business is. Easy As always looks at it as to what line it's associated with. Okay, so if, for example, you had a business set of books here and a set of books under number 2, and you happen to be printing an invoice for each one, and they happen to be invoice number 10, both of them, you would not know how to distinguish it. So in this case, it would say 1 invoice 10, 2 invoice 10. It's pretty obvious which one belongs to which business. Okay, that's why those numbers exist. The only other thing I want to let you be aware of is Easy As saves these files in a rich text format, rich text file. Okay, those files are read by word processing programs such as Microsoft Word and several other programs. If you or your potential client does not have a program that will read a rich text file, don't run off down the road and purchase anything. It's not necessary. If you go to www.openoffice.org, you can download their suite. They've got an Open Office suite. You can download it. It's free of charge. It's completely open source software. They've been around for the last 20 years. The last 5 years they've made magnificent improvements to the product, and it's perfectly free. So don't have to go and buy anything. Just download the software and use it. That's it. That's all I needed to discuss.